Hello, all. Thank you for watching the second episode of Shady Talks. I am here with my good friend Scout of Southern Charm Sports. Fantastic follow for those of you on Twitter. Covers Alabama, really all schools in Alabama, college football 26 and 25, which we will talk about that a lot more today. You see him in all the replies. I feel like he is always active. And again, just a great guy. I have, back when he was doing his show, the Southern Charm SCS
Happy
Happy
hour.
Hour, excuse me. I was a frequent guest on that, and felt it was only fair for me to return the favor. So, in addition to talking about CFB26, which just dropped for early access, we're going to look at some recruiting and some recent commitments. There are some very big names, some surprising schools getting very notable recruits. We're going to talk about the new one-time transfer portal window for the shrinking rosters and what it could mean for Jake Retzlaff. And finally, we're going to cap this off with a team in each conference that will make a bowl game that didn't last year. So, again, we're going to start with recruiting. The most recent big name is Felix Ojo. He is the best recruit that Texas Tech has ever gotten, taking that title away from Micah Hudson, a five-star who committed last year. Number seven player nationally, number two offensive tackle, best player in Texas. I mean, this is a guy that everybody wanted. He chose Texas Tech over Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, and Florida. Those were his other finalists. And he signed a 3-year, $5.1 million NIL contract. Again, this is a legit player that everybody wanted. It shows a lot about what Texas Tech is doing, partially in the NIL front, but also where they are as a program, where they can get that best player from the Dallas area away from. Really, this is normally a guy that would go to Texas. Maybe he'd get poached to Alabama, maybe A&M, but not a school like Texas Tech.
Yeah. And I will say one thing too is that everybody was talking about like that $5 million mark. And we're like, oh, who's gonna pay for that for a kid? I guarantee that 5.1 is that someone inked a check for five and they're like, okay, we'll do 5.1. And then they just gave up after that part. I'm not saying that the kid's not worth it. I'm not saying the kids could be worth it. I'm just saying that they were playing ball to get this kid and they were getting him no matter what. Right. And I think with all that money in Texas, especially that old money, that oil money, if you will, there's plenty of players. And I think that seeing these teams pop up, the Houstons, the Texas Techs, and they're like wanting to play ball. And I think one thing too with some of the Big 12 schools in Texas is that they feel a little underserved that Texas wanted to have to go to the SEC because there's a lot of Southwestern Conference still in that like area that they want all the Texas teams to be in Texas. But yeah, but overall, I think he's going to be a great player for him. I think it's a huge thing for them to get him. I hate that, like, well, and I say this all the time when I'm covering high school recruiting in Alabama. If your college team doesn't get a kid, that does not undermine that kid's talent just because he's not going to be at your school, right? And I feel like, and with such a long cycle too, like this kid isn't technically locked into to Texas Tech. Now, it probably takes a hell of a lot to get him away from Texas Tech, but it's a lot easier to keep him if you're being all nice after the fact and not just being like, oh, you're gonna suck, you're not gonna be anything. And there was plenty of both UT and Bama people that were on that case right after. So,
Yeah, you see that pretty much with every notable commitment. Even if a guy commits to Alabama over Georgia, you're going to still hear Georgia fans saying, "Oh, this guy's going to be a bust. He's going to do this and that." And I think you do see that more with guys who go to a school that's not a traditional power. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But yeah, you just
right.
have another selling point. But I think it's so good to see schools like Texas Tech get a five-star recruit. I think with college football, the more schools that have a chance at winning a national championship, the more parity there is in the sport. The sport's better. That's how you get more upsets. That's how
Yeah.
you get more memorable seasons from surprise teams, teams that aren't normally good. And I would much rather see Texas Tech sneak their way in the national championship conversation. Not saying it will happen, than seeing Texas and Alabama there every single year.
Yeah. And I'll say
So,
one thing to that is that I
mhm.
think that we're starting to see it to the point where the very top is no longer that far away. Like the very mountaintop of all this is a lot closer than people think. And I think we've seen that, especially with, like Georgia looked unbeatable, and then all of a sudden they lose to Notre Dame, right? And I'm not saying Notre Dame's a bad team, but no one thought Notre Dame was going to make it all the way to the championship, right?
Mhm.
Much less give Ohio State a run for the money for 3 quarters. But yeah, so
Yeah, I would agree with you. And the momentum for Texas Tech, it's not stopping in 2026. If we're looking at 2027, we have a prediction from Rivals on Three, whatever you want to call that company now, for LaDainian Gayton. He is the number one recruit for the class of 2027 from Georgia, and he's got a Texas Tech prediction.
but
That is major, man. If they can stack, this would be 5 stars. Obviously, there is a very long way to go, even for 2026, especially for 2027. But for Texas Tech to land a 5 star recruit 3 cycles in a row, that would be monstrous. And you could maybe make a case for Micah Hudson. Yeah, he had a lot of NIL money. He could stay in Texas. You could make a similar case for Felix Ojo. You can't really say the same for a guy from Georgia. That
yeah.
just, again, it shows where Texas Tech is at. It shows where their NIL is at. It shows where their program is at. The facilities are at. Players want to go there, and you're going to see the results very soon, possibly as soon as this year with that fantastic transfer portal class that they brought in.
Yeah, and I think also Texas Tech, I will say, I know you don't have it there, but fantastic jerseys. Fantastic. Like, dear Lord. Also, shout out my boy Terrence Carter.
Yeah,
Tight end.
I you can't go wrong with the red and black. You can't go wrong with some traditional stripes. Texas Tech's got all of that. Moving on from that, if we're talking about recruiting and commitments, we got to talk about Alabama. They just got
Yep.
another one of them ones with safety Jerah Edwards. He is another 5 star, number 23 nationally. St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. He chose the Crimson Tide over Auburn and Georgia. Look, Bama just gets these guys. They have been on a roll. Tell me more about that scout.
Yeah, so I had a damn cell phone recording get like 15,000 views just talking about Alabama. Now that was right after Sedarian Morgan had a commit to them, and now they've had two more 5 stars to a total of five now, and it's the becoming of a dynasty. I would not say it's a dynasty yet. I think some people were quick to pull the trigger on that. But this is how you build one. And getting all these kids in, like, to me, it's like they only had two 5 stars, I believe, in the last cycle, maybe three.
Only two.
And
Oh
then,
no. Poor
yeah,
Alabama.
yeah, and then I'm like, but if you like stack these 5 stars now, even if you lost half of them, you still get two or three, right? And I'm like, you're guaranteed two or three already in July. I'm like, dear Lord. So yeah, so for me, I'm very, very high on some of these cats and very high on some of these programs like or not I shouldn't say this, but very high on Alabama, very high on some of these cats that are committed to Alabama. Um, but yeah, but it's just insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with Kalen DeBoer is he isn't much of a recruiter. He didn't show off at Washington that this tremendous recruiting ability. And
Yep.
with Alabama, obviously, you're one of the big selling points. There's so much you could sell about Alabama. You could sell that you have arguably the best coach in college football history, Nick Saban. Now you have to replace him. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer is proving those doubters wrong, and he looks at Alabama in just as good of a spot as with what Nick Saban did, arguably even better. Moving on
Yep.
to the next big commitment, though, Bryce Perry Wright is a 4 star defensive lineman, very high 4 star, 5 star in some services, I believe. 6'2", 250 from Buford. He is a Texas A&M Aggie. Chose the Aggies over Clemson, Miami, and once again Texas, missing another very good recruit. A&M is having a I think, somewhat quiet, very good class. They've got 24 commits, and the number 3 class in the country, looking at 247's rankings right now, only 3 3 stars. This is just, it's such a deep class. You may not have any crazy headliners. Um, the one guy you could say is Tristan Gibbons, the athlete from Columbus, Georgia, but you just 24 stars and a 5 stars, just ridiculous numbers.
Yep.
Um, Blue chip ratio is going off the charts. Mike Elko is, again, Texas A&M has some great boosters to fund that program, both NIL and facilities, and a fantastic fan base. Just give them a couple wins, and we could see another step up from this for A&M. They just need to see it, need to prove it on the field.
Yeah, and I'll say one thing with A&M. They love their non-Texas Southeastern boys. I don't say that's a bad thing because I think that you can do very well with that kind of thing. Um, but overall, it's like A&M's been tossing money around, but I think the biggest thing that's going to either help or hurt their recruiting is wherever they find themselves in December, right? If they make the playoffs, I think that like the on-field success or lack thereof won't be a factor. But if they don't, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's gonna get real tough to start making excuses for all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I know at the end of Billy Napier's second year, he had a lot of decommitments. He had probably Florida at a borderline top five class. They fell to, I want to say, 11, 12, 13, and he has definitely rebounded. He's got a lot of momentum coming into 2025, but that's something that Mike Elko should be a little bit wary about.
yeah.
Moving on to a guy that, for those of you who don't know, I'm a Syracuse fan. I am ecstatic to talk about Calvin Russell, a high 4 star, 5 star to some recruiting services, committing to Syracuse football. He is 6'5", 195 pound receiver from Miami Northwestern High School, one of the powerhouses in Florida. He is fantastic. He is going to play basketball for Syracuse as well, which definitely impacted the recruitment. But I think that guy on the right, Fran Brown, did a whole lot more.
Mhm.
One of the things that Russell constantly talked about is his relationship with Fran Brown. Early playing time is another plus for him there, obviously playing basketball. But he chose Syracuse over Michigan, Florida State, and Oregon.
Yeah.
LSU and Miami were players in the recruitment as well. Obviously, Miami being the local school, and his mom actually played basketball with the Canes. This is massive for Syracuse. It just shows that look, you can make a case about Texas Tech being with their NIL and with their proximity to home is a little bit better than a guy from Miami, Florida, going up to Syracuse, but it just shows the amount of faith that recruits have in Fran Brown, how they feel that he can turn around the program and look, if you can get guys like Russell, you're going to get more guys who want to play with him. It's a snowball effect, I think, and one that, excuse me, should be very good for Syracuse.
Yeah, and I will say one thing about the franchise and everything, Fran Brown. I think that they have the most consistently built hype that than any other program. Like I know Florida kind of rides the wave with Billy and everything, but Q's has just gotten more and more and more. Like I picked them to finish fourth in the ACC yesterday, and I'm like I'm really confident that they will finish at least fourth, honestly, and then we can just figure it out from there. But it's just one of those things that I'm very excited to see like where they end up this year, but I think like they will keep like stacking bricks, as Coach Alvin would say. But overall, I think they're really up there because I think, and one thing too, because a lot of people draw similarities between Fran Brown and Dion. I think the only difference being that I think Dion's having to start where Fran Brown was like 165 or no, 100 a year ago today, 365 days ago. Sorry, feel a little tired. Um, but yeah, I think that Syracuse is going to be really good from here in the future.
Yeah, you're definitely more optimistic about this Syracuse team in 2025 than I am. But yeah, I think that's, I don't know if Fran Brown has made a mistake publicly. He has gotten Syracuse. Yes, they had a couple bad losses last year, but those were easily offset when you look at the wins. He's recruiting much better. He is doing great things in the community. I think that for the most part, Georgia Tech fans might be a big exception to this. Most people love Fran Brown. Being neutral fans,
Yeah.
Georgia fans love him as well. They saw what he did as a recruiter, as a just as a person, as a talent developer when he was there. And I this may just be me being a little bit biased and not seeing what other coaches do, but it just sounds like he's got a great vision for everybody, every player that steps into his program, and he's going to have Syracuse in a much better spot very soon.
Yeah.
Um, Final recruit that we're going to talk about. This one is a surprise to say the least. We are going to look at. I'm an idiot. We don't have a graphic for this. We're going to look at Xavier McDonald, though. He is a wide receiver from Mississippi, a 4-star wide receiver, and he is going to Sacramento State. He chose the Hornets over Ole Miss and LSU. By far, he is the biggest commit in program history. And now
Yeah.
Sacramento State has a top 60 recruiting class in 2026, beating out a lot of Power 4 programs. Not a lot, but a good amount of Power 4 programs, beating out a lot of the group of five. And this is all for a team that is in the FCS still. They're trying to get to FBS. They are not there yet. That is very surprising. Talk to me about that, Scout.
Do you know why I like this one? Do you?
I don't know why.
My fault, my fault. But okay, so Zachary Potter, their GM, Sac State GM, he was the GM of the Birmingham Stallions for 3 years.
Okay.
And then with this new crew from UNLV, they brought him in, and he's been their GM ever since the head coach was hired. Like I think it was, I guess 8 months ago now, 6 months ago, however it was. It
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
it felt like it was right after conference championship season. Um, but yeah, but uh, he's turned it around for sure. They've been recruiting at, I'm pretty sure they're at like 40 right now, because this is not the first FBS recruit they've stolen. This is just the highest caliber
Yeah.
FBS recruit they've stolen this year. And I think the whole idea is that they're really trying to sell to these kids, hey, if you come to us, there's a non-zero chance that you're playing FBS football, or at the very least, we're going to play a brand of football where you can transfer if you really want to. But I don't think that these kids that are coming in are going to want to transfer. I think most of them are wanting to stay put, at least for the time being, because this is a really well put together football program. I think that they're going to be very good, if not this year, definitely the second year. But yeah, but these cats are going to be really, or these Hornets, I should say, are going to be really stinking good in the next couple of years. So
Yeah, I agree. I think really as long as you can keep Brennan Marion around, he is a guy that players want to commit to.
yeah,
Not unlike Fran Brown in a way. And
yeah,
as long as he sticks around, recruits are going to want to play there. He's going to have great support from the Sacramento State donors who they want to see Sacramento State successful. They want to see them in the FBS. It hasn't happened yet. I do think that we will start seeing that very soon, though. Moving on from this, though, we have to talk about the new transfer window. This is a one-time thing that the NCAA implemented because rosters are dropping from 130 to 105 spots. So you have 25 players that, for the most part, are getting cut. I know some schools, Notre Dame is one of them, that are grandfathering in those 25 or so players. Mostly are going to be walk-ons. There are going to be some exceptions, maybe some guys buried on the depth chart. Players have to be placed on a designated student athlete list from the school that they are leaving. As of Monday evening, the only player in the transfer portal because of this is Syracuse edge King Joseph Edwards. He is actually a former 4-star from the class of 2024. Chose Syracuse over finalists Florida State and Colorado in a pretty eventful recruitment. Per on three, he took 51 visits. He ended up redshirting in the 2024 season, but recorded 3 sacks in limited action. I think that a guy like King Joseph Edwards, a 4-star talent, is going to be the exception. I mean, you have to have the school basically saying, hey, we don't have space on this roster for you anymore. And again, for a 4-star talent who has only been in the program for a year, there has to has to be something going on.
yeah,
I don't want to speculate too much over a guy that is doing something different, something that he probably didn't expect to happen. I do know that King Joseph Edwards was in Fran Brown's doghouse, for lack of a better term, in the offseason. My guess is maybe a mutual parting of ways. They both agree that going somewhere else is better. Um, Wishing King Joseph Edwards all the best in wherever he ends up. This could be, I don't think this is going to be a huge deal. Obviously, this is just a one time thing, but one school, maybe Colorado, maybe Florida State, maybe somebody else is going to get a very high ceiling player, a guy that they can develop into a very good, probably an NFL level player.
Yeah, and I'll say one thing about some of these guys getting a doghouse. I think Ole Miss has been several of their players have ended up in a doghouse or something like that in the past. A lot of the SEC schools have had one or two in the past 20 years. And it's like the only bad part about it is you know that if you let him go, he's just going to be better at another school, right? Like in very few of these cases is that player ever worse at a new school, right? So yeah, so I wish the kid the best of luck in that because I know it can be a pain in the butt to go through this whole transfer portal process
Yeah,
um, in this day and age,
yeah,
especially this time of year. Because if you don't, if I've seen it more this cycle, but in general, if you don't immediately get in with somebody, you're probably not gonna get in with somebody. So it's
yeah.
interesting.
I agree. Especially this is July. I mean, spring practice is over. Fall camp starting in probably less than a month. You
Yeah,
you don't have a lot of time to find a spot and get acclimated, get enrolled in class, and start learning the playbook.
yeah,
Another player that could be affected by this new transfer window is BYU's Jake Retzlaff. So it was reported initially that he would enter the transfer portal about a week ago. He is still yet to enter the transfer portal. We got a tweet from Pete Nakos of On3 explaining what could happen there. The most likely options are for him to get a waiver allowing him to transfer from the NCAA, walk on to a new program, which I believe would be most similar to what Xavier Lucas did going from Wisconsin to Miami. That he didn't transfer in the transfer portal. He unenrolled from Wisconsin and re-enrolled as at Miami, or he could enter the portal as a designated student athlete, which is what we just talked about. And BYU would have to place him on that roster, getting cut because of the changing roster limits. But with Retzlaff expected to be the starting quarterback, that is just not going to happen. It's a pretty interesting situation. Obviously, in general, you don't see starting quarterbacks transfer out in July. Obviously,
right.
this is a very unique circumstance all around. We'll see if Retzlaff can get out of BYU. I think the expectation is he still wants to transfer. It's just he can't right now.
Yeah. And yeah, obviously, I don't think we need to go into specifics. I think you can Google it if you want super
Yeah,
specifics on why the kid has to transfer. But yeah, it's just a messy situation. Obviously, it's one of those things that at a religious school like BYU, if you're told something of that nature, you have to report it. And if it's a no, a no, what's it called? Like no second chance policy, whatever proper
yeah,
term is there,
yeah,
then the kid's gone, right? And I will say just like props to them for holding up to it, like I'm sure that either other schools that have similar things may have let one sneak by, or I'm not trying to call anyone out independently, but um, and yeah, there could just be tons of different things with that. So
yeah.
props to them for handling it quick.
You can talk about schools in the past giving players like a slap on the wrist punishment.
Yeah,
Oh, this guy is suspended for the first half of their first game of the year against FCS nobody, or they're missing 1 week. They're missing a game for a DUI. Maybe not anything that bad, but
yeah,
something along those lines. Getting some meaningless punishment, for example. Retzloff would
yeah,
have faced a 7 game suspension at BYU, and with this being a senior season, you don't want to miss over half of your year. Again, credit to BYU for basically just saying, hey, our rules are our rules, and we're not taking any exceptions, even if this guy is our starting quarterback and just won us 11 football games the year prior.
yeah. And I will say to that is the one coach I will say in the past that was honestly really good at holding on to that was honestly Jimbo Fisher. Like the whole Jameis thing where they were playing like Clemson was the one school on their schedule that year that could have beat them, and he sat him, like he benched him. He's like, I'm not dealing with it. Um, because that was the week after all that stuff had come out. So obviously, a completely different situation. But I'm just saying that there were times in the past where it was held up properly. But I would also say for every one of those times that it was fine, there's probably five or six that were swept under the rug. So
Yeah. Moving on from that, though, to something more exciting for everybody. We got a new college football video game that just
yeah,
released in early access today. Scout, I know you have been playing it a lot. Let's get your early thoughts on it.
yeah. I'm even playing it right now just to practicing on it or whatever.
Wow.
So the
No
only mode I
dedication.
haven't played yet is Road to College Football because I'll end up probably playing that the most. Quick tips. Dynasty's a little more in depth than it was last year. Your coach, like your initial coach, matters more. But each tree is a little different. You can't just pick recruiter because you suck at the game. So you need to pick one that kind of fits your play style, fits what you want. Because then you need to earn 10 levels to get out of that tree. So like if you suck at recruiting and you pick recruiter, you're gonna be stuck in recruiter for several seasons. Um, because I'm pretty sure you have to like it's like a certain tier per star or whatever, or tactician, and you can't win games, whatever. And then Ultimate Team is Ultimate Team. No, no ifs there. Gameplay wise, pretty solid, pretty solid. Recruiting and the transfer portal is really good. My favorite though is the Road to Glory. It has high school, but it's not like it was in 14 where you were just dominating on these 55 overalls. It is challenging, but not in the sense that it's challenging, but in the sense that it's like you have to do a very specific task and you only have four chances to do it per game. You only have five games, so you only have 20 chances to do something. So like even if you mess it up one, that's potentially 5% of your total that you've lost already. So yeah, and then each different challenge or like goes to a different school or whatever, so it goes kind of crazy. So
Isn't there like you can get offered by a school in Road to Glory, and if you don't perform very well, or maybe it's a time based thing, if they get another commitment at your position, they could pull an offer, something like that.
yeah, yeah. And then or what was I trying to say? And then, but you can also verbally commit in this one, which I think is crazy. So if a team that you really want to go to, if they're like barely edging right there, you can verbally commit to them and at least hang on to them until your signing day. So
I see.
also, and I will say there are only don't get me started. There are only 2,000 players on Xbox Road to College Football right now. So hey, get early access. Keep it moving. Because I guarantee on Friday night it's gonna be like 50,000.
Yeah, and I guarantee it's already probably at 10,000 for PlayStation. Not to call it out Xbox or anything. I'm just saying we got a little bit more of an install base over there.
Wow, that's crazy.
What do you
This
feel
guy.
about the presentation?
Oh yeah, the presentation's got like a huge rebuff. I will say I don't know who got their hands on some of these templates because I've seen people like doing templates. Even I have up one of the templates for like one of the helmets or whatever. But it's a lot more. Every team looks like they had the same amount of energy put into it, whereas some of these other years, especially in 25, some of the bigger teams clearly were put more effort into. So, you never know with some of these, but I like it. I think it'll be pretty good. Syracuse is a tier four team this year, though. I will say there's only five tiers, so they're on the same tier as Rice. So disrespect, possibly. And then
Yeah,
I,
isn't
I will
the
say I looked at the
go
the
on?
tier two teams, and so there's only four, eight, nine. Well, how many teams? There's nine tier one teams this year, dear Lord. But there's only four or five. There's only six tier two teams. So and then tier three, I think has even more coverage. Yeah, tier three is almost like every other team, and then tier four is just like the Boise State's a tier four. That is insane. Okay, whatever. We'll go more on this in depth later, boys. But yeah, but overall. pretty solid. There are a couple players that either are or aren't on there that you might not know, like Ra Thomas for Troy, really good. They did remove Chris Lewis already, sadly. I know Chris Lewis was on their roster last year, but with his retirement, they went ahead and removed him from the roster. Sad. Um, but yeah.
Final question about that. How long until Charlotte gets a national championship?
Um, it's gonna be a while. It'll probably take like 4 seasons at least, dear Lord. But we're not too far. We're closer than I thought. I thought it would
There
be
you go.
like even longer, but no, it'll be fine. Um, but yeah, but it's just they don't have any speed. That's it. And I'm trying to like recruit these guys that are supposedly speedsters, and then they have like 85 speed. I'm like, that's not fast enough. But then I realized that they've kind of like retuned speed too. Like, so there's supposed to be, they said in any given moment, less than 100 players with 90 plus speed in the game at any given moment. And it does line up if you go right now and you look at all the players, I think there's like 80 in the game, right? And a good chunk of them are seniors. There might be more now because I got somebody look at it before. There might be more like right above 90. I know there's less than 50 with 95, and that's supposed to stay similar. But each one of those categories, the elite, like the elite attributes, are supposed to be less and less. And then you can just earn it up there. Because in all reality, a 91 speed freshman isn't very common to say the least, or shouldn't be
Yeah, you
very
have to
common, I should
be
say.
a speedster, somebody known for, running track or just being fast on the football field in general to get that speed. So
So,
glad that that's getting a little bit more realistic.
yeah. Oh, but I will say the one thing, Nick Harbor, why does he have 99 speed? Anyways, never mind. Does he have straight line speed? Sure, but he also has a 97 acceleration. However, he is not the fastest player. The fastest player is Jordan Anthony from Arkansas, because he has 99 speed and 99 acceleration. And Roger Pleasant from UCLA has the same thing. My fault, my fault. Keep going.
Dude, you're all good, man. Um, Final thing we're going to talk about. I guess we can say I don't really care. Nick Harbor is deserves that speed, and acceleration is a big part of straight line speed as well. Final thing we're going to talk about is we're going to look at one team in each conference that didn't make a bowl game last year that we think will. Some teams that didn't even make a bowl in 2023, but had some really good seasons last year. Indiana, BYU, Colorado, Florida, and Buffalo. Shout out to Mac. All teams that really improved and got into a bowl game. So that's, I guess, a precedent for what we're trying to do here. We're going to start this off with the American Athletic Conference. I'll go first. I'm going to start with Florida Atlantic. Two big additions is what gives FAU the jump from only 3 wins last year to getting to at least six and moving into the getting back into the bowl games. Quarterback Kane Veltkamp and new head coach Zach Kitley both come from Western Kentucky. Kitley was the offensive coordinator over there. Veltkamp was the starting quarterback for most of the year. I think that those two they have their air raid. They know the system very well, obviously, and it was rolling for a lot of Western Kentucky, a lot of his time at Western Kentucky. And I think that they're going to move to FAU. They're going to move into the American, and they're going to do the same thing, and it'll be enough to get to 6 wins this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Hold on. Why can't I find your thing? Okay, yeah. Um, okay, I had Rice. I knew I had Rice for the American, but I just need to find the rest. Scott Abo. I know it's a big ask, but I don't think their roster is as far away from the other AAC teams that people think it is. I don't think the 6 wins is crazy with their schedule as people may think. So I'm gonna say Rice. It's not my boldest prediction, boldest to come soon. But it is I would say probably uh, Josh Pate does the 5 out of 5. We'll use a 10 out of 10 scale. On a 10 scale, it's probably a good 6.5, 6.7, 6.7. My
Shut
fault.
up.
Um, but yeah, but I would say Rice is my pick for them.
I got you. ACC, you probably have the same pick here. Florida State. My justification, I put a little note next to all of these. They can't be this bad again. I mean,
Yeah.
this was a generationally awful season for Florida State last year. Mike Norvell realized that he had to make some changes. New coordinators on both sides of the ball, and Gus Malzahn and Tony White. The roster is still pretty talented. It's not a top 10, top 15 level roster. It is a roster that is more than good enough to make a bowl game and probably win about 7 or 8 games. I'm not really huge on Thomas Cassianos, the Boston College transfer, who is talking a lot, to say the least, but they're, excuse me, good enough to win a bowl game and make a bowl game.
Um, hmm. And I'll say one thing with all this is that I picked FSU as well, and I think with FSU is that my biggest thing with all this is that if you have that kind of team with Jordan Travis that edges a four-team playoff spot, there's no way you can drop so far down. I think that there was just something in the water, just something wasn't right, right? Um, but overall, I'm a big fan. I do think they'll bounce back. Will they beat Bama week one? I don't know, but I also don't think you should define your season over one loss in like the first game or like the first week of the season. Hell, that's like half of like the sports TV shows that exist always start like that, like the pilot episode's a loss, whatever. I've been watching a lot of Ted Lasso, anyways. Um, but overall, I think they will bounce back. So yeah. So now we're on to the. Oh, I don't think I picked a Big Ten team. You can go.
Big Ten. I'll start just to give you a little bit of time. UCLA. I really don't love any team in the Big Ten to make a bowl game. Michigan State was the other 5-7 team last year. I don't love their schedule enough to get to that sixth win. UCLA is a team I'm a little bit more confident about. Um, I think the big thing with them is they overachieved last year. They have a pretty good floor. They had a surprisingly good defense. They just had nothing at the quarterback position. They get Nico Amalava though. He is, say what you want about him. He is a definite upgrade at the position. He's a definite upgrade over Joey Aguilar, who was supposed to be their starter that transferred away actually to Tennessee once they got Amalave and essentially a trade, but I think that he will be enough to get UCLA over the hump, or he has a better chance of doing so than Wisconsin, Purdue, or Northwestern.
Okay. You're gonna laugh at this, but my lock is Mike Locksley and his Maryland Terps. I think they were solid last year. They had the top end talent, they didn't have the depth. Now they have the depth. And I think one thing too is that Maryland just historically is a program that has those boom and bust years. And even if last year was a bust, it wasn't even that bad of a bust, you know what I'm saying? Pause. But yeah, so it's like I think that Loxley and his Terps, they bounce back. Obviously, they don't have the receiver this year. They don't have some of the other talent at the outside this year. Uh, but overall, I'm gonna pick them. There's not that many teams that are just like it's the same with the SEC. Although my boldest prediction is in the SEC. Um, every year there's just not gonna be that many teams to choose from. So
Yeah, I agree with you, especially when there's so many good teams. It's just very difficult for some of these teams to find a path to get to 6 wins.
yeah.
Moving on, though, I'm going to go with the Big 12. A little bit easier to find a team, and I'm going to choose Kansas. So they went 5-7 last year. Just a lot of weird games. They finished off the season very strong with upsets over BYU, Iowa State, and I believe Colorado as well. Don't quote me on that Colorado one. They just had again weird games like that. UNLV game is a game they probably should have won. They could have beat Illinois if they didn't turn over the ball so much, and they figured things out towards the end of the year. They are returning Jalen Daniels for what feels like the 17th year now. A new offensive coordinator Jim Zabrowski should help as well. I didn't think Kansas's play calling was very good last year, especially after losing Andy Kotelnicki. Put all that together, they easily should be over 6 wins, probably should be in that 9 win conversation, maybe even pushing towards a Big 12 conference championship berth.
So mine, I had two, honestly,
Mm,
but my most solid one I think is UCF. Just their schedule lines up a little bit better. They don't have to go like to the swamp again or something. You know what I'm saying? But on top of that, Arizona also didn't make, right?
no, they did not.
Yeah, Arizona was my other one, and kind of the same thing. Just, dude, they had so much hype going into last season, and it just all kind of fell like flat on the face. So. I'm pretty high on them. But UCF, Scott Frost, I think that's going to be a huge momentum boost for that fan base, for that program. Um, Obviously, I have no idea what Gus Malzahn was doing for 12 weeks last week, but it wasn't winning football, right? Well, 9 weeks last season, so it was like because the first three they went 3-0, then they went like in the rest of the games went like 7-2 or not 2-7-2.
Two and
No, really
seven.
good, like 2-7.
I think it was
But
one and
yeah,
eight
but
actually.
just overall, just so I think Scott Frost, UC Fast, if you will, it'll all be making a return, and they got Mackenzie Milton out there, so it's just aura farming out here. So yeah.
Moving on to a team that I don't know. They don't have much aura to be honest. We're going to the Conference USA. We're going to the University of Texas El Paso. Give me the Miners. Malachi Nelson at quarterback's a big upgrade. They have a pretty workable schedule for USA standards. They only have one bye game. They get Kennesaw State on the schedule, both new FBS teams in Missouri State and Delaware.
Hmm.
Um, I think that Scotty Walden is a pretty good coach. He was not dealt a very good hand in his beginning at UTEP. The quarterback position is a big problem with that. I know Malachi Nelson has not really panned out, and I know going into year three, he didn't think that he'd be at UTEP when he signed at USC as a 5-star recruit. There's just
No.
too much natural talent with him, though, that he shouldn't be able to cook in Conference USA. It is a very bad conference. I think UTEP does enough to get to a bowl game.
Now you got me thinking because I didn't think about the FCS schools, but I said Middle Tennessee State.
Okay.
Obviously, you got an former SEC coach there. They're going to be real solid. I think that they've been able to they've been waiting to crack here for a minute. I don't know who's going to end up being their starter. I know they have a bunch of them back. They have a bunch of like random senior talent, but I don't think they've totally announced one yet. I could be talking about, but Hunter Schuttenstein, as he's known, it's a burner up there in MTSU. I'm sorry if they've already announced it. But my other one though, and it's more on the weakness of Conference USA, and I still don't understand. Like I love to support G5s, but in some of these, like the Sun Belt thought that they could like steal any Conference USA member. Name other than La Tech, I don't think there's a Conference USA member that's that pretty in like a moving format. Like Jack
Kentucky,
State probably looks
maybe.
real good to any group of five conference that doesn't have a team in Alabama. The only bad part is the two conferences that would have any interest in Alabama have two teams and one team respectively. So they wouldn't need all that. So all the other teams, they just aren't there totally yet. So I will say my other bold prediction, I guess, Missouri State makes a bowl game simply off their Conference USA schedule. They might go 0-3, 0-4, whatever. I forget how. I think it's 9 Conference USA games now. But they're gonna win 6 of those Conference USA games, make a bowl game.
Sounds good. Um, Past that, a conference that might be better than Conference USA. They might be worse, which is saying a lot. We're going to the MAC, and when I did my research, I did not find a lot of good options. I ended up on Eastern Michigan though. They had three one-score
Hmm.
losses a year ago. They were, I believe, 5-2 or 5-3, and they just went on a pretty bad losing streak to end the season. I trust Chris Creighton a lot. He is a very underrated coach for turning around one of the worst programs in the country in Eastern Michigan into something decent, at least something consistently good. Again, 5-7 a year ago. I think they can take a step up, and I think that they can get to a bowl game this year.
Yeah, I also had Eastern, kind of the same reasons, just the only one that pulled. But I will say, Lance Taylor and his Western Michigan, what are they, Broncos,
Broncos.
MAC champions. I know that's not what you asked, but thought I'd just toss a little prediction in there. Because I
That
think
is
Eastern's
a
just
hot take.
I think Eastern's like a low, and it's not like an easy call, but it's like like I don't feel like that's like a crazy prediction. But we both
Yeah.
picked it, so
Look, sometimes you just gotta hit your layup.
yeah,
I'm
that's what.
not
Yeah,
predicting Kent State to make a bowl game this year, and I don't think anybody with the right mind is either. Ball State, I
hey,
don't have a lot of optimism in them either. There's just Akron's not good either. They can't even make a bowl game if they wanted to. It just you don't have a ton of good options. I'm just gonna take the consistent one.
yeah,
Um, I will spice things up at least a little bit more. I'm gonna go with the Mountain West. I'm gonna go with Utah State. They
okay.
have Bronco Mendenhall. He has proven himself as a coach who just wins, especially at places that are hard to win at. He made BYU a very consistently good program. He made Virginia a consistently good program as well. Finally beat Virginia Tech. Bryce Perkins made it to an Orange Bowl and ACC championship game. Like, come on, this is Virginia we're talking about. First year at New Mexico, taking over a pretty barren roster. He went 5-7, upset win over top 25 Washington State. Utah State, he's going to be given more resources. He's going to be given a better roster. I think that he gets to at least 6 wins in year one.
My Mountain West, and I don't know how you felt about this one, but it was Wyoming. Obviously, Craig Bowl was at Wyoming for a huge amount of time for a G5 school, almost a decade. And I just think that they were down just because they lost the coach. And I feel like now with a full year under Saville, that they'll bounce back. And it's only a 3-win bounce back, and they have an easier schedule. A lot of these schools that didn't make a bowl game, I think they just like scheduled too hard. And I know that might sound crazy, but like some of these schools that had 3, 4, 5, 6 wins. They got knocked out early, which I think like the worst thing is when you see these teams that, okay, when were their last losses, right? Like were they 3-3 and then they lost three in a row or like four in a row and then all of a sudden they lost their like the other two games or whatever, right? And I'm just like, ugh. So yeah, so Wyoming's one of mine.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Jay Sovil, to be honest. Um, I could be wrong about that. Wyoming has more fan support than you'd expect for Wyoming. They
So,
are really the only show in town, the only 4-year institution in the state of Wyoming, and they have good fanfare. And yeah, they definitely could be back soon. I won't predict that though. SEC, look, you can say a lot. You can say whatever you want about me wanting to shoot layups. Auburn is going to make a bowl game. If they don't, it would be very funny. I think Hugh Freeze would be back on the unemployment line if they don't make a bowl game. I'm not very high on Jackson Arnold. They he is an upgrade. Auburn really just needs somebody competent at quarterback, somebody that is not Peyton Thorne. That is what Jackson Arnold gives you. The roster is more talented and more deep than in years past. Hugh Freeze has been a much better recruiter than Brian Harsin. A lot of those early recruits now are what, probably year two, year three.
year
Um,
two for the most part.
yeah, that's something, and I think that with all of that, Auburn again, they don't have a high bar to clear. They just need to get to 6 wins. They should be able to do that. Again, if they don't, bye bye Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, and I'll say my thing too. Hughes did better last cycle than he's done this cycle. With that being said, I think that this is the same thing I'm saying about A&M. Their on-field play is holding them back in recruiting. And if they can get to the point that they're mid-season, I think that they're more worried about their first 6 games than their full 12. Because if they're a mid-season 4-2, 5-1, I don't think they have any issues in recruiting this go around. But if they're mid-season 3-3, 2-4, 1-5 would be absolute terror. But yeah, that's when we start going, hmm, hmm, right? Uh, so yeah, so I'm optimistic, pessimistically, right? Like, but a paradox of sort. But
Hmm.
I just don't know, man. Like, if they didn't make it last year, they should have made it last year. It was a way, like, I understand you get Georgia at home, you get Bama at home, but you should have made it last year still. Mine out of left field lock, just because of how much I love Jeff Levy, is his Mississippi State Bulldogs. Will they have to go through hell and high water to get there? Yes. But I wanted to pick one that I thought had the least amount of chance, but I was still fine with saying out loud, and I was like Mississippi State for sure. I think with that level of offense, that level of offensive firepower, or that he's previously had, I think he can make something work and get 6 wins out of them this go around. Where will they come from? Absolutely, don't ask me. But I think they have a shot.
Yeah, I
So
think if we go back to that Josh Pate boldness rating from 1 to 10, that's probably closer to the a 9, maybe eight and a
yeah,
half, 9. I am not very optimistic about Mississippi State at all. I think they have probably the second worst roster in the SEC, ahead of only Kentucky, and the worst head coach. That is not a very winning combination. Jeff Lebby proved me wrong, and if I am wrong, Scout will probably not shut up about it, because that is a shot in the dark. Um, Final conference, the Fun Belt, um, known as the Sun Belt to some. Give me Appalachian State. Again, I'm shooting layups here. I don't care.
layup.
They've only had one losing season since returning to the FBS in 2014. That was last year, and they were only 5-6. If they beat Liberty, a game that got canceled due to wildfires, they go 6-6. They make a bowl game. Definitely could have did it, knowing how Liberty was last year. Um, I just trust this program. I trust Sean Elliott. They are losing Joey Aguilar, which he is a pretty good quarterback, but obviously you can do better if you cut down on the turnovers. They will bounce back. They're more talented than most teams in the Sun Belt. It's a pretty competitive league. I think App State gets it done, though.
You know they have AJ Swan as their quarterback, former LSU Tiger.
Vanderbilt Commodore. That's what I think about him.
But yeah, that is their current quarterback. I think they'll be fine at quarterback. Also, the Joey Aguilar slander. Oh my Lord.
Look, I don't
Don't get
want to
me
say,
don't
I'm
get
not
me
trying to
started.
slander him. He was a good quarterback. He had a turnover problem.
Okay. That and see, there you made some sense. There you made some sense, boy.
Thank you.
So my Sun Belt, did I not say it? Oh, I had App over 8 wins. So like less than a layup. I'm not too hot on some of these other cats. I do say Old Dominion's probably a layup in there too. Just say, hey, you know, get there. Um, and like ULM and Troy, I will say this is like, and this isn't I love these cats, they know I love them, but ULM and Troy, this is a please make it year. And Bryant Vincent had plenty of good games, plenty of good wins last year, including against Troy, but they didn't get up to a bowl game, and I think that the fact that they didn't make that simple thing ended up putting them in a hey. And I do know that they were pissed off that La Tech got the bid for the Independence Bowl and everything, but I'm like, dudes, like, if you won one
Six
more
games is
game,
not a problem, you know?
yeah, if you won one more game, you wouldn't have had to deal with it, right? So, whatever. Just take it on the chin, fellas, and yeah, so.
Yeah. So that was the last conference and the last thing that we have to talk about today. 54 minutes. Didn't know that we'd get that long. Thank you for being able to hop on Scout and have a great conversation. And so hope that everybody that is still watching has enjoyed the second edition of Shady Talks. We will be back next week with a new guest that is still TBD. And once again, I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank you, Scout, for being here. You guys have a great rest of your morning, day, night, whenever you're watching. Have a good one. Take care.